Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Welcome back to the show. Leo, very handsome man, and secondary to that, another very handsome man who may or may not be joining Seller Sessions as of next week. Thank you for joining us, guys. A few things I want to cover on the show overall today is first, of course, Adam is coming on board. He's we've been talking about this when we've been out on the road, Australia and a few other places, and been discussing what we can do for a while. And we decided this would work in January. I know I did give some updates at the, I think it was the end of September when I said what kind to expect in 2024. So I did kind of cover it there and allude to it. And it was good to get Q4 and stuff out of the way. So officially, Adam's going to be on board with us. He'll be a monthly guest on Seller Sessions. So you get to see more of his content as well. Leo, of course, he's joined us today. We'll talk about Seller Sessions live in a little while, but Adam, let's kick off with you. Let's talk about what your plans are for this year and why you feel it was good to come on to Seller Sessions, even though you're an independent entity and you have your own platform, very much like Sharon is a very independent. You're coming on as guest host. So yeah, let's unravel from there.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny. I can't remember the original interaction that we had, but I think somebody from the Aussie community tried to connect us way back when. This is years ago, and we were kind of ships passing the night for a while. We connected, I don't know, man, like a year and a half ago, and I think we finally met in person and just kind of cracked off and got along. And you kind of know your people, right, when you're aligned, and we had that, and had some good beers and good convo. And we were talking, I think, in Australia last fall, or coming out of last fall, just kind of what my plans were. And honestly, man, my criteria is pretty simple for kind of projects and things I pursue. It's kind of threefold.
Yep.
One is it's something that is interesting to me. I think like that curiosity and just like, you don't need to know an outcome, but does it seem like it'd be fun and cool? And obviously this jumping on this podcast checks that box for me. I think it's the best in the space and in the game. And really appreciate the content that you guys have pushed out, and I align with the kind of content you push out. So check that box. I'm fortunate at this point in my life, and I haven't been that throughout my entire life and career, but I can kind of choose who I get to work with. And so, checking the project box is one thing, but then sometimes you have to work with people that you may not be fully aligned with. And obviously we check that box as well. So it's, project I'm really interested and passionate about, people I like working with. And then the third kind of checkbox for me is operating in a way that I like to operate.
Yeah.
Again, I'm lucky enough at this point in my life and career where I can kind of pick and choose my spots. And if it doesn't align with how I want to work and my value system and everything else, I don't do it. So, my biggest concern was, I know you guys crack off like weekly with the podcast. I'm like, Danny, I can do once a month, but weekly is a little stiff for me. You're like, whatever, man, let's do it once a month. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing for me is obviously it's about the guest, but it's about what can I do the best way that I can achieve to bring content to the audience, right? And people will come on the podcast and they're graceful enough to share, and then obviously they get access to reach of audience, and people get to know who they are as well. So for me, it works both ways, but again, you need to make sure it aligns. I'm not very happy, let me rephrase that word before I get cancelled. I'm not the guy, like, I don't want all the salesy stuff, right? And I think when I focus on the 7-8 figure seller audience, right, which is say the 1%, anyone can listen to the podcast. So I focus on that, and I believe that most of these guys, and they don't want to be sold to all the time. They don't care about these 50% off discount codes and blah blah blah. They want a bit of content, and they want not a load of chat. They want actual content, right? And then they want to fuck off and run their business.
Yeah,
that's what they want to do, because time is money, and if you're a seller and you're building your business and everything, your time is very limited. So you have to pick and choose all of your activities for that to work.
Yeah.
So let's quickly chat about content wise. I know a lot of stuff come out of the channel. I'm been a fan of what you've been doing for a while. I should tell a quick funny story. Originally, I think it's because we were introduced by Australians. Like before the boys over in Australia did the big event in Sydney, which was incredible in November. I asked them to do my world tour last year when we were still in COVID. I couldn't get over to prosper. So that week I started to think, can I do a tour? Where could it be, etc., etc. And then we were talking about who else could come on the tour. And, you know, Sharon spoke about herself about certain things in private life and stuff. So obviously Sharon had been a good option to have a guest and stuff as well. And I said, what about Adam Heist? We'll get Adam. And I'm thinking you were Australian. I know you're not, but for bizarre reason, I'm thinking he's Australian. So I reached out to you and say, listen, I'm doing this tour. We're looking in Melbourne, Sydney, and Melbourne, Sydney. I think it was Adelaide. I can't remember the original thought plan of doing that tour. And I'm like, where do you live in Australia? He said, Dan, I'm not Australian. And I was like, right, are you Canadian? He's like, So basically that was quite a funny situation where, yeah, so we built up a relationship from there. Like, then you reached out and said, you know, enjoy what you do. So what are you looking at to do content wise this year? Because, you know, when you're making content and you're doing it year after year, you have to kind of upgrade each year, right? Everything's still got to be relevant. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, right? So when you sit down at the beginning of the year and go, right, what am I going to do next year? What adjustments can I make to keep things interesting, not only for me, but for the audience as well?
Yeah. And so I've been, I think my YouTube channel is, I don't know, like 2.5 years old. And it's been an interesting journey creating content. I think you know this too. It's a little bit odd flicking on a camera and kind of talking into the abyss. So it's been really rewarding and honestly weird in a lot of aspects too. But when I was looking at the year ahead, kind of coming out of our conversation in the fall, and then just in general, what I was looking to do, I like it to be fun, right? I feel like if you're not working in flow and you're not working on stuff that's a hell yes, it's forced and people can feel it. And there's been points in my kind of content journey where I felt forced a little bit. It's the exception more than the rule. But so for me, it starts from that place, like where is it fun? And I think intellectual curiosity is a big part of business and kind of experimenting and trying new things. And so for me, you know, I think it'll be in the similar vein to my channel. I think where we're very aligned, and you kind of alluded to this in your kind of preamble previously, is just like no agenda. Like I hate that stuff. I know you do too. So literally, I think it's going to be kind of twofold. First of all, no one has it figured out, right? Danny doesn't have it figured out. Leo doesn't. I certainly don't. All we do is we go into battle, and we go into the journey of building businesses, and we find some things out and we make mistakes. And so I think one component of it specific to Amazon is just my journey growing and building my brands and businesses. There's things along the way that I think are nuggets that can help other people. There's also, you know, bloody noses and scars that can help other people. So I think part one of it's just sharing real time where I'm at with my businesses and what's working, what's not. And so I think some component of the videos will be that. In terms of the intellectual curiosity and kind of fun and stuff you could literally, that doesn't feel like work. I love chatting with sellers, especially sellers that aren't on the scene, so to speak. Right. So I think, you know, and we've come to make a lot of friends in this industry, from software providers to agencies to aggregators to other kind of public figures. And I enjoy those conversations too. But the ones that are really interesting to me are the people that are literally in the lab. You know, you don't know them, you don't see them, you don't hear them. And those, you know, entrepreneurial journey conversations and how people built businesses on Amazon and how they're dealing with the mental side of entrepreneurship. And those are my heroes, frankly. And I equate it to, who would you want to have go to a pub with and have a beer and have a 2-hour conversation with? Compress that down to 45 minutes. So I'm going to try to track down some folks that I want to talk to, honestly, and that I think are interesting, and we'll hit go. I don't prep interview questions. I don't have like a whole list of stuff. It's just a free flow, two human beings talking. So I think one component is going to be kind of my path to building businesses. The other half is going to be interviews. And then I think one other interesting thing too is I'm focused on a new brand launch here this spring that will actually be Kickstarter, that will parlay that into Amazon. So that's new to me. I don't have a playbook for it yet. I don't know if it's going to work, but I want to talk about off Amazon launches, retail, other components of the business I think are going to be important, and just like real time as stuff happens, I'll share that journey. And I think I'm going to actually share the brand name for the first time. That's one thing I've always wanted to do.
Get ready for the stabs in the back and the knives coming out and the attacks and stuff like that.
I think there's a ton of downsides to it, but honestly, it just feels right. So I think that's probably the other component. But yeah, we're free flow, man. I think every month we'll take it as it comes, and I think it'll be fun.
Well, welcome on board. So Let's move into chat about Seller Sessions Live. Both of you, Leo, sorry, you've been a bit quiet there because I've been chatting with Adam. Apologies for that. Both of you will be at Seller Sessions Live. I just want to quickly go into, again, the story behind what's going on with Seller Sessions. Like, I was actually thinking 2 weeks before Christmas, I didn't think it was going to happen. And I'll tell you why, because we originally had the date for May 6th. And at the David game was the place we always go. And effectively what happened was I spoke to Kerry. I said, can you contact them and see if we can get the week before, the week after, because it's the coronation. We'd booked it way ahead before the Queen had passed, right? So now we've got the coronation here in the UK. So you can imagine London's going to be a gridlock. It's going to be locked down. Hotels and flights all on surge pricing. So that drives up the costs for sellers, and half or if not more of the audience comes from America, Australia, Europe, etc. So that increases costs. So we thought we'd move the date. Then Kerry drops it on me and says, Dan, Neil's left the David game. I said, yeah. He said, we can't do the event now. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, they changed things with inside of there, but there might be an opportunity to do this, right? I knew just then it was going to be a nightmare. And the reason I say this is because we've kept our ticket pricing structure the same since 2019, right? And the reason we've been able to do that and be able to get speakers over and do the lineups that we do is because the David game is 10 to 20 times cheaper than most venues that you'd go to. So I take the money and the savings from that, invest in the speakers that we bring in to do bigger lineups and other areas within the moving parts of putting on the conference. And what happens as well is when you've got sponsors, they also keep down the cost. So each year my costs have gone up, but I've kept the ticket prices the same. So I knew straight away they got the battle. The second battle was, if I can't find a venue in that area, even at a higher price, right? The second problem is I'd still have to negotiate and find more hotels in a different area where the venue would be. I need to find an after party venue and negotiate and get the deals done there. And I would have had to do the same for the VIP dinner. And we'd already sold 50 tickets for Seller Sessions pre-Christmas. So all the people would have to be notified those changes there. The big thing is if people pay up for flights and accommodation, cool, you can refund tickets. That's not a problem. But sellers have still got additional costs, right? And that's out of my control with airlines and stuff. I can't do anything about that, right? So I knew that there's going to be a bit of a battle. So effectively, I spent a couple of weeks speaking to various different venues in the area. I mean, I got desperate. There was a bingo hall just behind the David game. It's a great place, but can you imagine saying, yeah, Seller Sessions Live, new home, we've moved to a bingo hall. It looked fucking great. Honestly, it's like a really modern day, and you wouldn't notice if it didn't say bingo outside of the building. But it was a little bit smaller and couldn't do that. Then I started looking at the hotel. So I want to give you a bit of game here. Why conference tickets, not always exclusively, but tend to be, 500 to 1,000 to 2,000. One of the main reasons is because working with conference centers and hotel is very, very expensive. All your costs shoot up through the roof. So I'll give an example. One hotel wanted to charge £5.50 or £5.20 per cup of tea. Not a mug of tea, a cup. Now, for 200 to 250 people, say, the raw cost of that for the tea, the milk, etc., is no more than 150 quid. You throw in the urn, a little bit of electricity, and someone to work the urn, or normally it's self-service, right? They just clear up around the area. But you're getting into a stage where you start adding that up, and that's just one area. Then you've got your lunches, your dinner, and then there's the 12% service charges, right? And then there's AV, and then you've got to take their security, because most of these put you in a box. So a lot of these conference ticket prices, a massive amount of the money actually goes into paying these hotels and stuff, because they want to do a per head basis. You can't use outside services. So even when I was negotiating, I called it open book. I was going into these places and saying, look, this is how much I pay. Here's the quote. Here's what I paid. This is the total amount for the food for the event, right? What can you do to get near it? And it was like 7 or 8 times as higher. The venue itself, like obviously I'm not going to get anywhere as cheap as David Game, 10, 20 times higher. So once you start looking at that, and I didn't want to come back when I've already opened my mouth and said I don't want to put the ticket price up, to then go, hey guys, you know, by the way, we're in the middle of a recession. I know you've got margin compression, but do you mind paying $2,000 for a ticket? It's not going to fucking wash. So we had that, but I've managed to get a venue which I didn't even know. So we're still in the same area. It's 2 minutes down the road from the David Game. It's a beautiful building as well. It is a conference center as well, but they were sensible. So now I've managed to negotiate the deal. I'll eat all the costs on that, but the ticket prices stay the same and we get going forward. So that was quite a stressful time just before Christmas. And I'm glad that the issue came up, because we've now got a better place to operate. I love the David Game. I know some people thought it's a bit of a shithole and stuff, but I used to say to people, what do you want? You want to pay $299, $349, or $399 for a ticket, or we can take you into a building. It's got gold plated walls and you charge you $2,000. And they go, no. I quite like the lower price, please. Because no one wants to pay more. Why should they pay more? So there's a little bit of insight there, is that when events are put on, that is one of the major reasons why ticket prices get shunted up, because the outrageous costs and the fact that these hotels and venues will effectively force you to do all of their services. I've mentioned on here before the gig that we did in Vegas, to hire a microphone, a Shure SM57 with an XLR cable, so I could use for 2 minutes to speak and let thank our sponsors at a free party for sellers. Right, we had about 250 people there. I think it was the top of the line, the Sky Lounge or whatever. I can't remember. It was at Prosper last year. $868 was the quote for this microphone. Right, on Amazon you can buy this microphone for $100 with an XLR cable, and you can just throw it in the bin. Right, you don't need to use it. In the quote, the way it broke down, you had the hire of the microphone, you had 2 hours travel time, you had 4 hours labor on site, then you had management fees, and then you had Vegas taxes. And it takes about 30 seconds. See, this is a microphone here. The cable comes down here. You plug that in and you plug it into the mixer. That's how much labor it takes. And then you turn the volume control up on the mixer that controls the microphone. But they wanted nearly $900 for it. That's what you can end up dealing with if you're not careful. So being able to control the costs on the back end means I can still give actual value over perceived value. So now I've had a little rant about the story. Now everyone knows Danny's little violins came out just playing for me across the world, right? What have we got lined up? So I want to talk about quickly the lineup. Obviously, Sharon's going to be there. Leo's going to be there. Adam's going to be there. Jana Cretchit will be there also. Tim Jordan, Ben Leonard. We've got Ben Weber coming in. He's been on the podcast a few times. 8-figure seller. Matt Altman, 8-figure seller as well. But what also I'm excited about is that we're going to do our first seller hacks competition. Right. So there's a prize of £1,000, because I want to get more and more sellers involved and getting them some stage time and feed in that loop back to the community. So basically, I stole the idea from Kevin King. Thank you, Kevin. I know you'll probably listen at some point on a playback. So the idea for that is anyone can reach out, gives us a specification on the hack that they want to present. There'll be a second and third prize. I just needed to define that. The audience will decide who the winner is. We're going to obviously track that and do it that way. But that will take place on the late afternoon of the event. So we've got obviously the speakers there. Some have returned from before. Obviously, Sharon will be co-hosting alongside us. Leo will be his first time. Also, with the after party, for those who was over in Austin, me and Leo were DJing. It was quite funny. We were DJing on a boat party, then it pissed down with rain, didn't it, Leo? and then said, well, what we're going to do is pissing down with rain. It's like a boat party and everything else. And we split the day in two. And then Kevin's partner secured a warehouse. And so we went and done a warehouse party as well before we finished off our drinks at the hotel. So Leo will be DJing as well. Very good DJ. Not as good as me, but we'll do you remember what Kevin was saying? He said like we were peacocking around each other because we was like, he's a DJ. No, he's a DJ. It's the typical DJing things. Like, is he any good? Can he DJ? I don't know. And then you end up your DJ and you're going, actually, yeah, I like this tune. And in the end, because we build it as a joke, right? The joke was it was going to be we're going to have a boat each.
Yeah.
And then it was going to be like you know, who's going to draw the biggest tunes and stuff like that. So it was a bit of banter and a bit of fun. But in the end, we just DJed back to back, didn't we? So it was,
there was more fun actually.
Yeah, exactly. Because I didn't get to lose my title as the best DJ in the Amazon community, because I was the only DJ in the Amazon community, right?
That was a smart move. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm joking. I really don't give a fuck. Honestly, what I enjoy is people getting off on the, you know, going crazy on the dance floor. That's what gets me off. I want people to enjoy themselves. I don't care who's DJing, who's better than me. It doesn't matter. It's all like when you do music, as you know, Leo, it's a vibe. That's all it's about, right? You come in, you bring the vibe, and your job is done is when you've got smiling faces in the dance floor. Even with Adam when we was in Australia, there's some video footage of him on the dance floor, Robert Miles' children. Is, you know, I love that. That's what I like. I love to get that, bring that then characteristics out of people, to then they go away and they've had some memories. They've had a great night, you know, great event, etc., etc. So you and I will be DJing on the Saturday night at the after party. Of course, we've got the VIP dinner as well. So far on the seller hacks that are on board is Kata Phipps, Michelle Venton, Erin Graybill, very successful sellers within inside of the community. So people that are listening now, if you want to apply, just drop me a message. You know how to reach me. I'm quite easy to get hold of. Give me an outline of the hack that you'd want to do. And then what we do, there's be a maximum of 12 people that will be in there. And it has to be based on no more than 3 minutes. So effectively, you've got to get your hack over in that time. You can use slides, or you can obviously just ad lib if it's clear enough and concise for people to make notes and carry out on that hack.
Danny, how are you going to pre-select those 12 people?
So what I'm doing at the moment through all the promotions and stuff, because it's the first promo run of now seller sessions, we'll be dropping a lot of content and stuff like that. So the idea is I'll do content in and around that, you know, through the socials, inviting people, you know, here's the specifications, are you interested? Then validate that one, the hack works, and two, it's not going to be there's not a duplicate of the same hack, as an example. So it'd be based on the first come first serve basis. So if someone comes in and they're the first person to arrive with the hack, if number 10 comes in and the hack's the same, I'd go back to them and say, hold on, such and such is already doing that. Do you have another one? And if it's good enough, it goes in, basically, because that's what it's about. It's about what can you do to get the very best of the content.
Awesome.
So Leo, what is your plans for this year as well?
Oh man, that's a good question, Danny. I've been actually thinking a lot about this Q1 first. I was actually listening to, I think it was Gary V yesterday or the day before. It was one of these reels, very inspirational. But I think the goal for me now would be to focus primarily on this Q1 without thinking about, you know, the rest of the year. And you saw last year I was heavily focused on you know, my personal brand and growing them more, because I figured that you know, I've been adding a lot of value and giving really knowledge and sharing information in the community for pretty much, you know, free over the past few years. And I want to continue doing that because I see a lot of people obviously benefiting from the knowledge, growing and getting a lot of success. And so I definitely want to do a lot more of it, and especially like building a channel where all that information is obviously easily searchable, you know, findable. That is something that I'm still trying to figure out, whether it's going to be a YouTube or a TikTok. But that's one of my goals for Q1. Also, another thing that I would like to do, I think you and I spoke about this, was to, because I see a lot of information out there. And I also see a lot of noise. You know, like I pretty much agree with what you know, Adam was saying earlier, that we haven't all figured it all out, right? We always learn and we always try to improve. But also what I see is a lot of noise. this has been always happening, right? Like a lot of sellers, they try, they never succeed. Eventually, they start selling courses. But the problem is that the result of that are also, failed kind of inspiring entrepreneurs, and
Yeah.
that's what really pisses me off, and I don't like to see that. And hopefully this year is going to be the year where, because of more data coming from Amazon directly, because of like a little bit more transparency in the space, we'll see a lot much much more valuable information. But that's also something that I would like to focus on as well. And so I was thinking to create that some sort of like advanced like crash course, because a lot of people ask me, how did I start, right? What is it that made me successful or sell well on Amazon or whatever I do? And I really am self-taught. I didn't really go to school to learn digital marketing or e-commerce. I just been very curious. And so I like to inspire more people to be like myself, or like you guys, and that is very, very meaningful to me when I see other people obviously grow. But one main channel that I want to really focus on this year, and you guys know with my new project, the Convomat Connect, is influencer marketing. I see that being not only the present but the future. For at least the next 5 years. I see TikTok growing, so there's a huge opportunity there. But I also see an opportunity because everyone is kind of like rushing into that channel right now, but they're not really paying attention to who they work with and the type of relationship they establish. And ultimately comes down to really being consistent also from a brand perspective, right? And so that's one thing that I've been always passionate about, especially like you said, you and I have been in the music scene for a very long time. That the kind of creativity that comes with that specific talent is something that you can take in different industries and still make an impact, right? It doesn't matter if, like I always say to people, when I speak on stage, it reminds me of when I used to DJ in front of like 2,000-3,000 people. That gives me a lot of energy. I feel good. When I see people nodding with their heads, it's like me back in the day seeing people just dancing and going crazy on the beats, right? So I'm really, really excited about it, and that's one of the fields that I would like to make a big impact on. So I'm really excited to be part of your event in May and share like strategies that I see really working well today, not only in the influencer marketing space, but in general. Like there's so many things that I've seen Amazon changing lately, and you really have to pay attention to each one of them in order to succeed.
I was going to go back to your point. You know what you said about being on stage, DJing and stuff like that. And I'd go back to years ago saying that there's a correlation. What happens is, so I'll give you an example. I used to be in the studio producing. I had my own recording studio, right? And used to put records out on my own independent labels. Then I'd go out and DJ, go on tour. And I also had a Kiss FM show. So when I look at it, and you look as you extrapolate and transfer industry, Seller Sessions is my Kiss show, my radio show, right? So podcast, radio show, same medium. The DJing, I'm doing a bit at some of these events anyway, or I did last year, and I'll probably just do 1 or 2 this year. But then you got on stage DJ, right? Because whenever you're speaking, there's all the same essence of those from a feedback point of view, from a different volume of feedback, but it's still a feedback protocol. And then when you're making a record in the studio, you're still, although an artist doesn't like to call it a product, the record label, like a major label, will call it a product. And when you're developing and designing products or services, there's a creative process to that. So it's kind of being back in the music, but I've actually tied in more of the music from when I did about 30 gigs last year, and probably about 10 or 12 of those I did DJ gigs as well. So it is kind of marrying some of the key things that you do back together. And I think it comes down to, if you're more of a creative person, like I don't believe I'm a typical entrepreneur. Going back to what Adam says, right? He operates at a different level with me, but he said he's in a position where he does what he wants, how he wants, and everything else. And I have 3 rules. I don't care how much money's in the bank. These are my 3 rules. Does it make meaning? Will it make me happy? And will it make me money somewhere down the road? Because you have a long-term view. If I can't meet those three things, I say no. And that's why I say no to 99% of things that come across. You ask most people in the industry, everything's nearly no, don't do that. No, 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 no. I'm ruthless with my no's, not to be rude, but they don't fulfill those three elements. Does that make sense? And I think, getting back to what you're saying, music, creativity, or if someone does product development or they're doing marketing, they're doing video content, whatever it is, these all start to marry together. And I notice as well, Adam's a musician. So when you think about what he's doing with his podcast, video podcasts and stuff like that, there's a creative element, then you're putting content together, and because of that musicianship, that can come through in your content. Anyway, I'm starting to get a bit woo-woo here. Going back to some of the other key points that for this year.
Yeah, those are the main ones. Danny, I see, obviously, I love the space. When people ask me, well, would you do anything else? I say, no, I love the space. I want to keep doing more and more. But for this year, one thing that I promised to myself is to be obviously more focused. And you and I had a lot of conversations about this.
Yeah.
Like saying more times no, not because I don't want to support people, but because I have a little bit more appreciation for myself.
Yeah.
Like when you get the validation in the space, you need to, it's like a mirror, right?
Yeah.
It's a reflection of what you're putting out there.
Yeah.
And so, speaking at events, I love speaking at events, goes back to our DJ times, like that, makes us feel good. But at the same time, speaking at events is a lot of work. I'm speaking next week at ASGTG.
Yeah.
And,
great event. I've done May last year. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been working on a presentation this whole week. I don't have VAs that create slides for me. I like to do it myself because I like to deliver content that I'm comfortable with and I know. And so that is a lot of work. And so when you and I have spoken a few times about this, I said, Danny, for me, it's hard to say no because I love doing it, but I have to, because I cannot just spend a week every time preparing presentations. And, there is no really, I don't sell anything on stage. I don't go and pitch anything, right? So it's really free value. So this year, I also want to be a little bit more selective and, kind of like pick and choose the people that I want to work with. So Adam, I agree with you there. It feels good to be in that position where you can choose who you want to work with and also who you want to surround yourself by, right? Because that's what really elevates us and what makes us, grow in the space. So Danny, I appreciate the opportunity, and I really look forward to your to seller sessions in May.
Yeah.
But that's really what I have in mind and what I have in my kind of toolbox ready to be deployed this year.
Yeah. And then we'll get you back on because we done the ranking show a little while ago, didn't we? And we're covering off your perspective, somebody from the science literature. And I'd love to get you back on more this year. Coming back to Adam. So what's been going on in terms of the content you've already been doing recently? What are you been vibing off? Because I know that the whole chat AI thing is just kicked off. I just bagged the show with Anthony Lee. We're going right deep into the prompts. And I mentioned like everyone's on it now. I'm loving it at the moment. It makes me look like Hemingway and I can't write for shit. So what are you seeing in terms of the AI? And we'll take it back to Leo. Where do you think this is all going?
Yeah, I mean, I think frankly, it's leaped forward with Chat GPT faster than I thought it would have. I thought we were, 3-4 years away from something meaningful. I'd used copy.ai, Jasper, things like that before, and it was good, but Chat GPT is just taking it to another level. So frankly, I'm just scratching the surface. I think the implications are yet to be fully realized, but I think it's super exciting. For me, it's less exciting for me, and it's more exciting in terms of being able to scale the organization underneath me. Yeah. So you take English as a second language staff, you take customer service staff, folks that don't have the language skills to create something initially. They can get that foundational creation set up, and then you can have other people refine it. So I'm more excited for the use case for my teams than I am for myself. But it's been super exciting. I think the thing that's interesting for me is like Amazon's gotten really operationally complex, and then the margin has gotten complex, and the different cost feeds have gotten complex. Pay-per-click has become tremendously complex in terms of just how necessary it is, as well as how opaque some of the strategies are. Like, what are you really getting a dollar in, dollar out for pay-per-click? So I think one of the more interesting applications, and I'll probably do a video, I'm actually going to be in the middle of a case study. I've been doing stuff manually since the fall, but we're going to start using some AI-based software for this test over the next couple months. So, I'd say Q2, I'll do a video on seller sessions about it, but AI for pricing. Like, for me, the holy grail has always been, if I could price my product at $19.99, not $22.99, how much could I reduce my ad spend to keep the same organic rank and the same contribution margin? But when you get into these multivariant data tables, it just becomes too complex to look at an A/B, right? And say, hey, I pulled this lever and this happened, because there's 12 levers. And so for me, AI applications on data sets within pay-per-click, organic ranking, pricing, and doing that in a way that is incredibly complex that you couldn't replicate with manual A/B tests. So that for me is probably the most exciting sphere, and something that I'm going to be diving into. I've been actually, you kind of instigated this when you did your seller sessions presentation on price last year. And it's always something that I kind of felt, and the so what of that is basically the people at the top of organic rank are the lowest price. Like, who didn't know that? But I think the way that you illuminated the data set was really interesting. And so for me, playing those scenarios out with software tools that do things that humans can't in the Amazon game, I think is going to really play itself out over the next couple of years, especially with pay-per-click and pricing.
Yeah, the reason I did that presentation, because I was sick and tired of keep hearing about perceived value, you should charge more, perceived value. And it just, there's exceptions to the rule, but people got missed on it. And I'm like, hold on. So you want to sell your brand that no one knows, and you want to sell this product double the price or 50-60% higher than the average price of the page. No one knows who you are, right? And you want to rank 1, 2, or 3. It's like, cool, if you want 5, 6, 7, 8, not a problem. That can clearly happen most time, but that's why we produced all of that data to show people when it comes down to the reviews, the price point, even down to the average price of PPC above the price of the page. And whenever I speak to people, normally what comes down to is, why am I listing not converting? I say, okay, jump on Amazon, put in your main keywords, let's have a look. And it's like, right, okay, you're selling that for $22.99. The average price of the page, $13.99. The top 3 positions are this, and this. Of course, there's going to be exceptions to the rule. And that is most of the problems over and over and over again, because people have been told, rather than data driven, you should make premium products. Yeah, make a premium product, but you're not Apple, you're not Yeezy, you're not all these people that get away with a premium priced product on every product. You're going to get some unicorns pissing rainbows and stuff, of course. But let's live in an objective reality. And that's why I really wanted to do that, because I don't want people to be disappointed all the time, and actually wanted to give them some real data and say, look, rip that apart. There's all the data there. Help yourself and test it for yourself. But if you want to be realistic, and you can still make that work at being positioned 6, 7, and 8, and it's still a good business, don't stress over it. Don't let your ego get in the way of, I need positions 1, 2, or 3 or bust. Because all you're doing is driving your ego to a degree there, and you're going to be fucking miserable, right? Because you're reaching for something that you're going to struggle to get to. You may as well go and carry on that process if you want to do that perceived value aspect of it at a higher price, etc., and do another product where you land at 5, 6, 7, 8. You haven't got targets on your back. You've got less chance of getting issues with takedowns and stuff like that. And then you move on to the next product and the next product. Like, we don't have to make it as difficult for ourselves, because we believe in our senses we deserve to be in those positions of 1, 2, 3, or 4. Anyway, so that's where my concern was with it.
Yeah.
Leo, AI, what you been doing?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked the question earlier, because last night I'm like, I need to come up with a really catchy title for this presentation.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it, but I went on GPT, and I said, hey, write the title for my presentation that is about these points.
Yeah.
And inspires blah, blah, blah. And the title was amazing. I'm like, holy shit, I would never come up with this. So I used it for my presentation. And then I took a screenshot of it, which I will share next week at the ESGTG. But
Yeah.
I was super impressed. And then I'm like, okay, and I have it here. I have it open. I said, okay, now write a title for my product. I'm selling I think it was the best in the world cooking pot that cooks pasta better than my grandma.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT blew me completely away. I'm like, my grandma is nothing on us or something like that. That was the first sentence. This cooking pot will never burn your food. Like it was just, like unbelievable. I'm like, and this is what I think, guys, is going to change Amazon in the next years to come.
Yeah.
Because Amazon is an algorithm that behaves and learns based on what we feed, right?
Yeah.
And we have been feeding the algorithm what we've been taught, right?
Yeah.
Like the keywords at first in the title, and then the images, and then Amazon introduced the alt tags and the images. So we're basically telling Amazon, okay, this is what our product is about.
Yeah.
As this AI becomes available, we will start writing the listing in a totally different way. So without realizing, we're going to change the way the algorithm behaves and reads the data, ingests the data, and brings the results back. I gave an example the other day. I don't remember if it was with you, Danny, but selling a weight loss product and putting Kim Kardashian in the back-end search terms field might actually hurt your business instead of helping you out, because you lose the semantic SEO relevance, which I think is going to be led totally by AI.
Yeah.
Because this ChatGPT is very smart. It's been trained on millions and millions of documents around the web, so they know exactly what it means, what the meaning is of this word, phrase, or topic. And when you try to disrupt it, it will eliminate, right? This is meaningless in this context. And so when you start using ChatGPT or any other tool that will be built off of it, you will be having, obviously, like writing way better listings.
Yeah.
Which the more obviously sellers will do so, the better the engine will be trained. And so over time, it was going to take time. Obviously, it's not going to be happening in the next month or so, probably 12 months, 18 months. But we will see the change in and the way search results are displayed and all of that.
Yeah.
So that's really what I think, how I think AI is going to shape our business moving forward. And I'm super excited. I would love to use AI to create more content. We produce so much content. That's one thing that I'm really kind of like researching and seeing if I can use AI to automate a lot more of the content that I produce. For example, this video, I could record it. Maybe AI can take it, can process it, can create a couple of like short content videos and put it on YouTube. That's really what I'm excited about.
Yeah, I used it for creating 11 carousel posts for my other business. 11 carousel posts in 3 hours. So that was the content to go in the carousel post themselves, very purposely designed to cover what I wanted to get across in a consistent way, and then the full body description of about 1,000 words. Plus the hashtags. 11 posts in 3 hours. I sat there, just that's it. Try this. It's really good for hashtags as well, if you're very specific. So it saves you a shit ton of time, because the content I cover, I know off by heart in depth. And when it produces that content, I know what's wrong, so I can instantly fix it. I don't think it's going to be any good for when you're doing content and you don't know anything about your subject, because you don't know if you've got the subtext of the content. And it's the same that I spoke to Anthony about this, is how do we niche down? Meaning, like with Amazon, it comes with a community. It's the FBA community. People know each. So there's a load of nuances that people don't get. And you'll hear it in the next show. But to give you a heads up, I use an example. A few years ago when I was posting memes, someone actually reached out and says, Dan, from the music industry, says, Dan, these seem to be hilarious, but I have no idea what you're going on about. And then lots of people were commenting and saying, yeah, no, these are really funny, but you have to sell on Amazon to understand. And it's getting AI to do that. So if you're doing Amazon content, I think that bit becomes very difficult. But if you go into the world of, let's just say, fishing or something more generic like that, it's very easy to create a lot of content in that world, or pertaining to certain structures and education and things like that. It's a lot easier to get that content out and then make all the corrections after. What have you found with that, with the limited aspect, Adam, when you're creating content with it? Do you use it as an idea generation to get the flesh out of something, get them to correct it, and then manually correct it because you had the domain experience to understand what is right and what is wrong within the information?
Yeah, for me, I don't think it's a soup to nuts creation tool. I think it's a foundation builder that you edit. So I think that's the biggest thing. But I mean, for me, it's funny because this has kind of been a theme of this chat across a couple different topics. But like, I look at life and business as there's things that could add energy and there's things that can take it away. And if you have too many things that take away energy, you don't operate at your fullest. You don't operate at flow. Your businesses don't grow. You're unhappy. So whether, we talked about like which events do you want to go to? What kind of content do you want to do? What are you doing in your business? For me, I think Chat GPT is interesting in the dimension that it takes things that are on your to-do list that you're like, I really don't want to do that, but I've got to do it. And it makes that energy drain less. You know what I mean? So like, how long would it have taken you to do those 11 posts that maybe you're creatively inspired to do it?
Somebody can barely read and write when he left school. That's 11 days work for me.
So it's like you probably like creating, but you don't like thinking about what are the words I'm going to do on 7 carousels? What are the hashtags? You like the creation, but you don't like the other stuff. So for me, Chat GPT, and I think AI to a certain degree, number one, it can help solve multi-dimensional problems that are difficult to solve as a human being or with spreadsheets. So there's that kind of altruistic benefit. But I think more than anything, the so what for me is it like it takes shit I don't want to do and it makes it less difficult. Less painful. Yeah. So that's kind of how I'm using it, honestly, is like, take the brainstorm, I'll shave it. And the pain in the ass thing I had to do takes 5 minutes or 3 minutes versus 20. That's kind of it.
I think there's a lot to come. And I think that software in itself the people are going to find there's going to be 150 ways that it can benefit your Amazon business. Oh, look, there's an ebook in there. Can you imagine the onslaught of ebooks now that's coming with this? It's going to be horrific. But no, I think with this is by the end of the year, a lot of people will be well versed in this. And just like people have SOPs, there'll be SOPs for how to get the best out of that for your Amazon business. Do you see what I mean? There's like 100 things you can use AI on your business, from asking questions. I think it's going to be incredible what we can do for productivity. And I'm interested in, once we get beyond just the written word, once you can bring in more things, access to the internet or video content or images. Can you imagine the next wave that comes from AI outside the written word and text, the way that's computed? If that is computed across audio, visual, and everything else, it's going to be very interesting what you could do with video content.
Can you imagine how many failed gurus will come up with content, like with courses?
They're already underway. I'm sure there's a shit ton of stuff coming out there at the moment. I'm sure there is going to be a load of stuff on its way. We're waiting for the onslaught. Right now, we've got the early adoption, and everyone's talking about using it. And everyone's talking about, well, what are they getting out of it? And everyone's sharing their information on that. And then the onslaught will come when the courses and all that. So we've got it all to come.
But I think the thing that is encouraging for me, it's like the samurai sword. Like, you can have the sharpest samurai sword, but you got to have a samurai that knows how to use it. So that's what it's. I think it still comes down to who uses it in the smart way. And the other thing I would say too is like complexity can breed. For me, complexity is a form of procrastination. It's like, there's going to be people that go spend 4 hours a day in Chat GPT and, I found this cool thing. It's like, so what? Like, what does it really mean? So I think it's a really sharp sword. It's an exciting sword, but I think it's going to be the usage of it in a smart and deliberate way that's used for efficiency. So
cool. Well, look, let's wrap that there. Again, welcome to the team, Adam. I'm sure that I know that Sharon wanted to jump on. But she had other commitments, so we'll see Sharon next week. I'd love to see a bit more of Leo. He knows what I mean by that. and we can continue those discussions. But best way to reach you, Leo, if people want to reach out.
Best way to reach me is actually LinkedIn. Just Leo Sgovi on LinkedIn or Facebook. I spend a lot of time on these two platforms. So if you need to get hold of me, just message me there, and be happy to get in touch with you.
Excellent. And Adam?
Yeah, just type in Adam Heist on YouTube is probably the easiest. You know, I alluded to wanting to chat with interesting people as part of my kind of monthly discussions on seller sessions. So if you think that there's somebody I need to talk to, or you're somebody that you want to jump on and have a conversation, just email me at adam@heistlabs.io. So keep that coming. So
cool, gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. Guys, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the guys in the comments as well, from Master PC, Adam's in there, Facebook user sends a fires emoji. Tony, say, is it Sega? Sorry, I haven't got my glasses on. Sweet or Adams, older Reddit to Amazon PPC. Do you still do that? Who else have we got here? Adam, any chat GPT prompts, ideas since the last video that you put out on your channel?
Yeah, nothing like show ready yet. I think what I'm realizing is there's some limitations that you need to have tie-in. So like if you wanted to go scrub reviews, there's character limits. So I'm looking at more third-party integrations where you take chat GPT and you combine it with other things to have a unique output. So nothing show ready yet, but that's what I'm kind of doing now is independent plugins to chat GPT and what that might look like.
He also comes back and says, what's your take on Amazon Live? I've been doing, I've been going live 2 to 3 days a week as a test case. So Tony, do you, Leo or Adam, would you like
to? Yeah. I was reading that question actually. I'm actually starting doing lives as well. If you guys know Gracie, I'm starting to work with Gracie on lives. It really depends on the product, of course, and the influencer doing the live. I would say if our audience is resonates with your audience, with your persona, with your product, I will say that's really smart, and I think that's where we're going towards. Live shopping, you're seeing this more and more happening on across different platforms. So definitely, like if you're doing it, keep going. It's a matter of time before you'll see that huge jump in or like growth in your overall business, because a lot of we would like to buy from people. This year at different conferences, I'll be talking a lot about this. Because what's going to change this year is the behavior in these creators' audience, right? Like we've already seen their audience, their followers complaining about seeing this. Every other post there is an Amazon product. Every other post there is a Shopify product, right? And they're being annoyed by it. And so it's very important that you pick and choose those people that you want to work with, and they really have a high affinity score with your brand, because that's where you're going to get the most, bangs for your bucks. Otherwise, you're risking to kind of dilute and jeopardize a little bit your brand, because it might come across a little bit too intrusive sometimes. That's my opinion, to be honest, when it comes to influencer marketing in general, whether it's live shopping or just, like a regular post on TikTok or Instagram.
Cool. All right, we'll wrap that there, guys. Thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Sharon, be up next. Take care of yourself and your family. Much love, and I'll see you soon.
Guys. Happy New Year.